Hey everyone, welcome back. This is a video all about team sites and Loop. Loop is definitely the new player to this field, and it's taking on the Sharepoint team site in some ways. And if you use team sites actively but have been looking for a little more casual way to collaborate, Loop may be the right choice for you. So in this video, we're going to break down 5 different sections that Loop and team sites are a little bit different than each other, as well as a concise list of use cases for when you should use one over the other. So make sure to stick around to the end. All right, first we're going to talk about the interface and navigation for these 2 different tools. So let's take a look at a team site. You'll notice a key thing in a team site is this left-hand navigation here. That's the common way to organize the structure for your little team site, where you can keep all the handy resources right there. And then you also see this action bar across the top. This is where you'll always find things that you can do on the page, whether it be editing the page or creating a new document. Then in the middle, you'll see the page content. So right now I'm on the home page of this marketing team site. This is where you can basically structure the page however you want, organize it however makes sense for you. Let's go to an example page here. So for example, this podcast publishing standard operating procedure that we have here, this is what we walk through in order to publish one of our podcasts. And you'll see that this page is way different than the home page here. So it really depends on how you want to lay it out as to what is displayed here. And then on team sites, the last thing is that you have this left-hand kind of global app bar that you can use to access things like your files, common sites that you use, or the global navigation for your intranet. And if you're used to using team sites or SharePoint in general, but you're not quite sure what the difference between a team site and a communication site is, we do have a blog and a video that's all about that. We'll make sure to link that below if you're just interested in learning more about the SharePoint side of things. Now let's head over to Loop, and you'll notice that this looks way different. It is its own tool. It's kind of set apart from the intranet side of things. You'll see a similar kind of left-hand navigation here that can be nested many layers deep. And then on the top is this bar here that you can use to kind of see who's here, a couple actions that you can take on the page, like sharing it, creating a component, and seeing where it's shared already. And then in the middle here is kind of the meat of the tool, very text-heavy interface that you can use to structure out your pages and then insert widgets as needed. It's all one column, which is quite a bit different than the SharePoint side of things. Loop is very much not as customizable as a SharePoint page would be, at least in its current state at the time of recording. So if you kind of want a simpler structure to your page and just single column, real basic, Loop is definitely your go-to. I generally prefer that because it keeps me out of the nitty-gritty of details of what a page looks like, and it forces me to just get the content on the page and not worry as much about configuring widgets. So then one other thing Loop has that is sort of similar to the SharePoint app bar, but it's different in this way, is that the workspaces are all listed here, where you can pick what workspace you're working in, as well as browse all your workspaces, come out here and find all your different loops in one place. If we've gotten this far and you're not quite sure what Loop is and you want me to back up and explain more detail, I actually have a video that's all about what is Loop, what does it do, and kind of explain how it's in this preview state right now, it's being developed, and go into some more detail about why you might use it. If you're new to this channel and you use Microsoft 365 all the time, I want to let you know that we are a 100% Microsoft 365 focused channel. Feel free to head to our channel and subscribe if you want to see more of that. We also have a learning center that you can use. Just go to bulb.digital/learn. From there, you'll find a ton of resources that will break down all of our blogs and videos and podcasts all about these topics, and be a good resource for you to learn and upskill on all of these tools. Next, let's talk about collaboration. So what does it actually look like to work in these tools on the day-to-day, and how are they different? If you're familiar with SharePoint, you'll notice that none of it is real time in the sense that you can see someone else actually working on things. You can go in here and edit, make changes, republish, and then people will see that, as well as you can save drafts and have people with certain permissions be able to see that. You can't actually see someone editing in real time. The only way you can do that on the SharePoint side of things is in tools like Word and Excel. If you have documents stored in your team site, you can see them typing and collaborate in real time. So a distinction to make is, while the document is stored in a team site, it's tools like Word and Excel that are actually facilitating the real-time aspect of it, which is a lot different than Loop. Let's take a look. So on the Loop side of things, it is heavily based on real-time collaboration. Edits are seen in like microseconds. Like it's like you're in the page together, working on things together, similar to what you might have experienced in tools like Word. It's everywhere in Loop. So anywhere that you are building content or configuring widgets, you'll see editing happen at the same time. So I'm gonna ask our video editor here, Benjamin, we're recording this project right now, so he can update the video status. I can see he's in this cell right here, and it's recorded just like that. I didn't touch anything, he just updated it, shows up on my screen, super nice. It's an easy way that you can actually be in a document and almost be looking at the same screen with someone working on the same thing together. And no, he didn't do that. This is real time. He's behind the camera right now. This is not done in post. So this brings up the question of, do I even want to collaborate this way? My answer is always yes. I like to be transparent and just have things out there. Some people like to kind of build in private and then publish their things for people to see. But Loop is definitely the tool for like, hey, we just need to brainstorm, get stuff out there, sort of an informal way of collaborating. But I will note that if you go to the Ideas tab, you can create your own individual page where you can build right here and no one else see, because it's not incorporated into any workspace. You can then take it, once you have it, to a spot that you want others to see it, and then add it to a workspace. I don't always go down this route of using the idea and then putting it in a workspace, but if you need to, it's there. Collaboration for external people is not supported in Loop at this time. Just so you know, I've been told it's something that they're working on. So keeping fingers crossed on there. We want to collaborate with external users as well. But if you're like, hey, back up, I don't want to work in real time, you can go with the team site. It's a lot more strict, it's structured. Sometimes that is necessary in some place like government. Loop is not going to be your tool for that. Go the SharePoint route. So I don't know if I can really choose if one of these tools is better than the other. I generally like the kind of free flow collaborating in Loop. So speaking of things coming and being developed, Loop is actively in development. We're actually part of a preview group that gets to see kind of things that are in process, and we can actually kind of influence on how those things are being developed, which is awesome. If you have any thoughts or suggestions, feel free to share them and I'll pass those along. You'll see, like, just a few days ago, code blocks got released. This was a highly requested feature. It's awesome. Now someone that is using code can drop it right in Loop. There's just so much stuff that is like actively being released to the preview. When I say preview, we're part of like a private preview group. The preview is live right now for anyone with Microsoft 365 that can be enabled by your IT. We talk about it a little bit more in the other video. These things that are on their Twitter are all things that you can start using today if you want to. Loop is definitely centered around building integrations and incorporating all those tools into one place. And I'm excited by the development of it. All right, next let's talk about content management and what it looks like to store and manage your data in these different tools. For team sites, it is for sure documents and pages. Documents kind of self-explanatory, but SharePoint builds a lot of things around those documents like metadata and like adding columns. Like let's say you want an expiration column on a policy document. Like the document aspect of team sites for sure outweighs the side of Loop, which Loop is not as much a document-centric tool. It's meant to house information that sort of links out to your documents, but it also incorporates things like content blocks and components. So let's say I'm over here on a Loop page and I want to share this component. So like, here's a sneak peek at some upcoming video projects. I can copy this component and then I can take it and put it on, let's just create a new test page and paste the component here. I'm gonna insert and share. That content management is way different than here's a document, let's work on a document together. It's meant to say, here's a component, here's something that we have stored in one place, we wanna display it in another place, and it gets linked up in that way. So which is better? Which should you choose in regards to content management? Let's say it this way, if you don't have a document-heavy process and you want everyone to be able to collaborate easily on a primarily text-based structure, Loop is for sure your tool of choice. All right, next let's talk about integrations. Both of these tools rely heavily on integrating with other tools in the Microsoft 365 suite. And so first I want to focus on the team site. So team sites and Microsoft Teams are directly tied to each other. And so I want to talk about that first. Every Microsoft team has a team site behind it. I'm tired of the naming too, and it's confusing, but that's how it is. This team site is where all of the files that you upload in Microsoft Teams to something like a channel get stored. Team sites are naturally easier to integrate with the rest of your intranet. Say you have a bunch of communication sites and you want to take content from a team site that you've been working on with your team and push it out to a communication site. That is seamless by just using the copy or move functionality and push it out to those sites. Which if you don't do that now and you're building in a communication site, that's a no-no. Try taking it from a team site, working on it there, and pushing it out to a communication site as a way to get it out to the rest of your organization. Now, Loop. Loop is, in essence, a very simple tool and very text heavy, and so it's going to rely a lot on integrations if you want to get stuff from outside of Loop into Loop. And so if you take a look at kind of this slash command here, you can scroll down and you'll see apps like Jira and Trello, so you can pull in resources from there if you need. The one that I want to call out is a task list. I actually have a task list already created here. So these are some things that we're working on here at Bulb. And the key thing to know about when you create a task list is it actually creates a planner in the back end, a planner board that is not associated to a group or a team or anything. It's a unique thing called a roster that we're going to talk about in the security section. But if I go up here and say open in planner, you'll see this is actually its own planner board. I want to talk more about this integration in a future video, but the important thing to know is that it's creating something in the back end, leveraging another Microsoft tool that you may be familiar with and pulling it into Loop. So you can see when I mark something off, and then if I go back to Loop, you'll see mini blog strategy is checked off. So you can expect to see a lot more of these types of integrations coming into Loop. I'm super excited about it. So one example of how we use something like this is, let's say we use Loop for meeting notes, and we take this task list and put it at the top of all of the pages that we take notes on. That will always be consistently up to date on top of all those meeting notes. So it's kind of like a running list of things that we're working on. And it's all integrated into Planner. So if someone uses, you saw up here, To Do, you can open up these tasks in To Do that are assigned to you, and use that as your kind of daily task management tool. And I will say more integrations are on the way. Can't talk about them, but I'm excited to see what comes and how these things evolve over time. I think Loop is going to be such a powerful tool when it gets to be kind of in its final form. It's going to change the way that we work internally. For those of you wondering, what is the difference in security of these tools? SharePoint is SharePoint. It's Microsoft leveraging the whole idea of owners, visitors, contributors for a long time, and it's structured around your groups that you have set up in Active Directory. The team association is also pretty strong in the SharePoint side of things. Loop is using this roster idea that is separate. It's not a group. It's its own thing that can be kind of spun off, that you can create a new Loop board, you can add people to it, and it's its own little thing that doesn't get represented necessarily anywhere else in the Microsoft ecosystem. And like I said, external sharing is not supported at the moment. Hope it's coming soon. So who wins? I don't know. It's different. The use cases are different, and it really depends on what your use case is as to what way I would guide you of using one over the other. So team sites are good for project management, document heavy collaboration, and creating a knowledge base that is sort of written in stone, something that is formal and structured and somewhere that you don't want people to fool with it. And Loop, on the other end, is great for brainstorming, ideation, a more casual way to iterate on something like a knowledge base while you're building it. So writing this blog and recording this video actually forced me to kind of get my thoughts around the idea of which one of these tools is better. And you know, a lot of people, including me, have slammed Microsoft for the idea of there's so many tools that do the same thing, and why don't they just finish one and build one great tool, and instead they go off and build other things. But I heard an interesting perspective from one of the Loop team members that looked at these tools as sort of like a toolbox. Like, let's say you need to cut a 2x4, right? Someone familiar with tools knows you can use a handsaw. You can use a circular saw, or maybe you have a miter saw, big fancy, but that's like overkill. Do you need to get out the miter saw to cut a little 2x4? Maybe not. Look at these tools in the same way. It's not wrong to use one or the other. Some might do some things better than the other. Yes, I agree, some could be more finished than they are and a little bit more full-fledged, but I'd encourage you to look through that lens of neither one of them is wrong, and they just have their own benefits over the other, and you might choose to use one over another on a particular day. With that said, if you have a particular problem where you're like, I need to cut crown molding for my house, like you can't do that with a circular saw. Use specific tools for specific problems if there is one. If it's a more general problem, pick the one that you like on that day, or the one that your business uses more regularly. If there's a particular problem that you're trying to solve, pick the tool for the job. So hopefully I did an okay job at laying out when you might choose one over the other, and help you navigate those use cases. Totally interested in your thoughts as Loop starts to get built further out and become part of the actual Microsoft ecosystem and not this preview thing. Hey, two things before you go. If you lead a workplace and you're kind of wondering how it measures up to others, we have a scorecard that you can use that takes about 5 minutes to answer a few questions, and it will kind of score you on 6 different areas in your workplace. We have that at bulb.digital/scorecard for you to try out. If you find out that internal communication is a struggle and somewhere that you can focus on, we actually have an internal communication guide that you can use to learn how to cut through the noise at your workplace if it feels like you're always just trying to be heard, or stop the rumor mills. Everyone is talking about things that you can't get ahead of. We have practical tips that you can use at your workplace, and we have it all spelled out in a way that helps you shift your thinking and give you how-tos to lead a workplace that communicates well and employees are always in the loop on what's going on. If you're interested in that, head to viaworkplace.com, VIAworkplace.com, to learn more. All right, that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.